Good morning, boys and girls. It's story time at Carman Collegiate. Are we all ready? Every Coug down in Cougville liked Christmas a lot. But the Spitz, who lived just in the north of Cougville, did not. Spitz hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right, or it could be perhaps that his shoes weren't tied nice and tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Cougs. Staring down from his cave with a sour, spitzy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Coug down in Cougville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath.
And they're hanging their stockings,
he snarled with a sneer.
Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here.
Then he growled with his Spitz fingers nervously drumming.
I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming.
For tomorrow, he knew all the Coug girls and boys would wake bright and early, and they'd rush for their toys. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise, noise. That's the one thing he hated, the noise. Then the Cougs, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on Coug pudding and rare Coug roast beef, which was something that Spitz couldn't stand in the least. And then, they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Coug down in Cougville, the tall and the small, would stand hand in hand with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand close together, and the Cougs would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more that Spitz thought of this Coug Christmas sing, the more that Spitz thought,
I must stop this thing. Why, for 53 years I put up with this now. I must stop Christmas from coming, but how?
Then he got an idea, an awful idea. Spitz got a wonderful, awful idea.
I know just what to do.
Spitz laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat. And a coat.
With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like St. Nick. All I need is a reindeer.
Spitz looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. That stopped old Spitz. No, Spitz simply said, which loosely translated means, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max.
Next line.
Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh. And he hitched up old Max. Then old Spitz said, I'll wait for him. Giddy up! And the sleigh started down toward the home where the Cougs lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Cougs were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square. This is stop number 1, the old Spitzy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could old Spitz. He got stuck.
Sports and hockey and college basketball. Die! Too many cheaties.
For a moment or two, Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little coop's stockings all hung in a row.
These are the first to go.
Then he slithered and slunk, with a smile most unpleasant, around the whole room. And he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. Then old Spitz, very nimbly, stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the coop's feast. He took the coop pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash, while Spitz even took their last can of coop hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee.
And now I will stuff up the tree.
And Spitz grabbed the tree. And he started to shove. When he heard the small sound, like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small coo, little Lisa Lou Coo, who was slightly more than 22. Spitz had been caught by this tiny coop daughter who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at old Spitz and said,
Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?
But you know, that old Spitz was so smart, so slick, he thought of a lie, and he thought of it quick.
You rotten.
The fake Santa Claus lied.
There's a light on this tree that won't light all the time. I'll take it back to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it there. And then I'll bring it back here.
And his spit fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Lisa Lou Coo went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney, and he stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. And he went up the chimney himself to the old fire. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other coops' houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other coops' mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the coos still abed, all the coos still a-snooze, when he packed up the sled, packed it up with their presents, their ribbons, their wrappings, the tents and the trimmings, the trappings, 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet. He rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it.
Pooh-pooh to the coo. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what to do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two, and the coops down in Cooville will cry, boo-hoo. That noise. I simply must hear.
So he paused, and old Spitz put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Coopville. Old Spitz popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every coop down in Coopville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And old Spitz, with his bare feet, ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could this be? It came without ribbon. It came without tag. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzle was sore. And old Spitz thought of something he hadn't before.
Maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, needs a little bit more.
And what happened then? Well, in Fruitville they say that Spitz's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, old Spitz, carved the roast beast.